Bremen Hill was a village where the wind never rested. Cold wind came down from the northern mountains through all 4 seasons, and the people lived their lives inside that wind. They grew crops, raised animals, and repaired their homes again and again. Whenever the wind tore off a roof or knocked down a fence, the people were strong, tough, and used to hardship. But among these strong people, one child was different. His name was Rian. Rian had been weak since the day he was born. If he ran even a little, he lost his breath. If he lifted something heavy, his hands shook. While other children played in the fields, Rian sat nearby carving wood, fixing small tools, or watching how things worked. The villagers cared about him, but they also kept him away from important tasks. Rian, stay with your mother. It's cold outside. You shouldn't push yourself. You're not strong enough. Those words hurt him, but Rian always smiled softly and nodded. He knew he was weak, and he did not try to deny it. But deep inside his heart, a small flame burned. There must be something I can do. So he used his sharp eyes and clever hands instead of strength. He drew the structure of the village water gate, carved wooden models, and noticed small changes that others ignored. That spring, the villagers began to feel uneasy. The melted snow from the mountains flowed down too fast, and the river became rough and loud. Adults stood by the riverbank, watching the water rise. At this rate, the water gate won't hold. That old thing can't last forever. The water gate of Bremen Hill was the life of the village. If the river overflowed, the fields would drown, the animals would be swept away, and even the houses would be in danger. But the water gate stood at the end of a narrow canyon, hard to reach and even harder to repair. It was old, complicated, and dangerous. A few days later, the villagers gathered in the meeting hall. Someone had reported that the water gate was shaking. The men tried to get close, but the water is too strong. If the water gate breaks, the whole village is finished. People spoke with fear in their voices. Then, from the back of the hall, a small hand rose. It was Rian. I can go. The room fell silent. Rian, it's too dangerous. You can't go alone. Rian took a breath and spoke clearly. The water gate can't be fixed with strength. I've watched it since I was young. I know where it is weak. I think I can do it. The villagers looked at one another. No one else had a plan. Rian's words were not just brave, they were their only hope. The next morning, when fog still covered the village, Rian packed the tools he had made, a rope and wooden pegs, into a small bag. The villagers gathered to see him off. His mother fixed his collar with shaking hands. Rian, don't push yourself.
Come back to me.
That is all I want. Rian nodded. I'll be back, mother. The forest was still cold from winter. Wind whistled through the branches, and the smell of wet earth rose from the ground. Rian walked slowly, but carefully. He did not have the strength to move fast, but he knew how to read the land and how to follow the wind. Halfway through the forest, a low growl echoed between the trees. A wolf. Rian hid behind a tree and held his breath. The wolf sniffed the air, walked near the river, and then disappeared into the shadows. Rian waited until the sound faded. He knew he could not fight or run, so he used the wind to carry his scent away and moved quietly along a different path. At that moment, he understood something. Being weak doesn't mean I can't find a way. When Rian reached the canyon, the water gate was shaking badly. The river crashed against it with loud, angry waves. If it broke, the village would be destroyed. Rian crawled into a narrow space under the gate. Only someone small like him could fit inside.
It was dark and wet.
He lit a small oil lamp and looked around. There, that's the problem. One of the main wooden beams was rotten, and the water was pushing it apart. Rian took out the wooden pegs and the board he had prepared. He began to repair the beam, his hands steady even though the water roared around him. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Rain began to fall, first softly, then violently. The river rose fast. The water gate shook harder. Rian grabbed the wood and held on. Just a little more, please. His hands trembled. His breath grew short, but he did not stop. He remembered something his father had told him before leaving for the war long ago. Rian, a strong person is not someone with great power. A strong person is someone who does not give up. Those words kept him going. Then, through the sound of the storm, voices echoed from above.
Rian, hold on.
We're here. The villagers had come. They ran through the rain, pulled ropes, and followed Rian's instructions. Move the rocks on that side. The water needs a new path. Rian's voice shook, but his directions were clear. The villagers trusted him. Rian hammered the last peg deep into the wood. His fingers were numb from the cold, but he did not stop until the beam was secure. Finally, the water gate stopped shaking. The river calmed. The danger passed. When the rain ended, the villagers gathered around Rian. Their eyes were no longer filled with pity or worry. Rian, you saved us. You're not weak at all. If not for you, the village would be gone. Rian blushed and lowered his head. I only did what I could. From that day on, no one called him the weak child. They called him. His mother slowly recovered with the help of the villagers, and Rian continued to improve the village with his tools and ideas. Whenever the wind blew hard through Bremen Hill, the villagers would smile and say, even the wind cannot scare Rian. He has already stood against a much stronger storm.